Hello, my name's Seraaron, and it's been a little while. Lots been going on for the last couple months, and I have failed to deliver on my promise of streaming every week or making weekly update videos on Evening Star, but here we are. Honestly, I think streaming just makes me too anxious, so I'm probably not gonna be streaming. Anyway, I thought I'd give an update on how we're doing, cause I have been working on Evening Star quite regularly, and the game has changed. I wouldn't say dramatically, but like there are some big differences between what I showed in the last episode. And I've had a lot of useful feedback from my friend Ollie. Excuse me. And I haven't had the chance to playtest yet. One thing that's put me off playtesting so far is that a lot of what I had written was stuff that was like kind of already tried and true, so to speak. A lot of like little ideas from other games that I know more or less work, that had been thrown into the game. And so to me, it felt like I wouldn't actually get very much out of doing a playtest, in that it's sort of like, well, I know all of these little bits individually work in a system, so why would I bother putting like 6 hours of prep time into a game and then running it for a playtest thing? I've also been struggling to actually think of a playtest scenario to run, but I think I'm finally there. I have something set up, or I'm starting to write something for a proper playtest scenario, and I have a version of the system that I'm comfortable with and happy with. So I thought in this video I would basically just kind of update some of my thoughts from the previous video and show where we're up to. Hopefully this will also kind of serve as a rules primer. So we're back in Visual Studio Code, still writing in Markdown. But I don't know, it suits me. I kind of like this outlining method where you just have like bullet points that the more you indent the bullet point, the more you kind of sort of elaborate on the thought that you're having. So I think the biggest change from last time is that I've switched from D10s to D6s. I decided, actually, yeah, I prefer D6s and I would rather have D6s than D10s. I've also changed the way that checks work. So previously we had like roll a D20 and then get all of these different bonuses from different sources. Now I have something that's probably more elegant. So you roll a D20, well, actually, let me show this page. So this is the like printout of the rules so far, or like the summary of the rules so far. So checks now use a very much more simplified system where you roll a d20, you add your ability score, and then if you've got any bonuses, you roll up to 4 d6s, a number of bonuses up to 4, and you take the highest one of those d6s that you rolled and add that to the check as well. And then I think previously I talked about rank as this idea of like your rank is something that is applied to your whole character and that kind of affects your power level. I've separated that out now into something called tier and ranks. So tier is the more broad kind of category that your character fits into, which I'll talk about more later on. But rank is something that's now applied to every single one of your abilities. And for checks, the rank affects how likely you are to auto succeed. So there's no notion of a crit or an exceptional success with a check, but there is like an auto pass chance, which previously was just if you get a nat 20. I've changed that to be associated with rank. So if you're the lowest rank, which is bronze, in that ability, then you don't have a chance of auto passing. Though you do have a chance of auto failing if you roll a 1. If you're silver, then you auto pass on a nat 20. If you're gold or platinum, then you auto pass on a 19 or 20. And if you're platinum, then you can't auto fail on a 1. And so rank, let's see, where did I write it? Rank really represents your kind of natural talent, your like innate ability, whereas score is sort of what you've trained, your training and growth. And neither of these two values really change very much over the course of play. And so most of your advancement is coming from attributes and the sorts of things that will give you positive bonuses. And to give you an idea of what this looks like, I made a draft of a character sheet here, which I'm really pleased with. I think it looks very clean. But you can see these are your abilities, and you have a slot for putting in rank and score. And I have a filled-in version of an example character. So here we go. So you would do like an abbreviated writing for your rank. So BR would be bronze, SI silver, GL gold, and PT platinum. But I mean, I guess you can abbreviate it however you prefer. But basically, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, you put that in your rank, and then the score is what you add when you roll a check. When you perform a task, then you're using your jobs, which is different. And so this is probably the other biggest change, aside from changing to D6s. We now have this system where you're rolling a pool of D6s, same as before, but you're not trying to beat a target or a threshold, and like if you roll above that, then you succeed, and if you roll below that, then you fail. Because I just felt like since we have checks, that's not the most useful use of a dice pool mechanic. The nice thing about dice pool mechanics is that they give you that ability to like count individual dice towards a thing. And so I've kind of flipped it on its head, and instead of saying, well, you have to beat a certain thing, certain number to succeed at this, I've changed it so that you spend your successes, or as I'm calling them, beats, to add to the scene and to get more out of the task. And so this drives home better the idea that tasks have variable outcomes, whereas checks are much more binary. So if you want like a yes or no answer to a question, or to can I do this, or will you pass or fail at this thing, and there's no like room for maneuverability within that answer, then you would use checks, and it's super quick and easy to resolve. And then if you're doing something where you want a variable outcome, you want to have that like gradation of different amounts of success, or like getting what you wanted but at a cost, or not getting what you wanted but with a benefit anyway, like a silver lining, then this is the way to do it. So I'll read through this in a little bit more detail. So basically you have jobs, that hasn't changed. Jobs inherit an ability. So if we go back to the character sheet, that's what this is. So the shepherd job at level 3 for this person inherits endurance or wits. So the GM will tell you what ability your task is going to be in, depending on what you're trying to do. So maybe you're trying to like stay awake to like herd all of the sheep and to like make sure that they're all kept safe overnight. So that's probably an endurance task using the shepherd job. So then you would collect together as many d6s as your level, so 3d6. Then you can search for help. All right, like if an ally is around and they want to help and they have a job which would be appropriate to help you with your shepherding, like farmer or something, then they can offer you one of their dice, and their dice inherits their ability as well. So if you only have like a bronze endurance, but your ally has silver or gold endurance, then their die will be more potent than yours, but you'll have more dice. And the rank affects that as well. So bronze dice only strike a beat on a 5 or a 6. Silver dice strike a beat on a 4, 5, or 6, so 50% chance. And then that goes down, so gold is 3 and up, and platinum is 2 and up. So on a platinum die with a task, you can only fail or only miss a beat on a 1. So really, really strong. But generally that also means you're not rolling that many dice, because I expect most abilities score bonuses, or the score most ability scores are going to be in the like 1 to 3 range for most characters. Occasionally you might get a 4 or a 5. The maximum is 8. And when you open a new job, when you start a new job, you will you'll inherit the level will start at the lowest of the 2 ability scores that it inherits. So in the case of interpreter, you would write level 0. When you're learning interpreter, you have you're either going to be testing your appeal or your resolution according to what you're trying to do, and the GM tells you which one to roll. So in that case, you'd get 1 or 3 dice depending on the situation. But then once you've learnt the job and it levels up above 0, it will open at a level equal to the lowest of these 2, which in this case is 1. So that's a kind of like way to emulate like, I guess you'd call it beginner's luck or something, where someone can have a little bit of an advantage. They're a little bit better at doing stuff when they first start, and then once they overcome that first hurdle of getting in the full XP bar, they might actually become worse. They might plateau for a little while before they start being able to roll a lot of dice. I haven't worked out proper character creation rules yet, so like I've no idea exactly how balanced most of these numbers are. But I'm anticipating players to not really be rolling that many dice. Like probably for most tasks, I would expect players to be rolling 2 to 5 dice. Which if you've got bronze dice, then that's quite a low chance of striking beats. But that's okay, because your threshold to succeed is something that you buy now, and if you can't afford it, then you still have other things that you could spend beats on. So just like base success, whatever your agenda is for the task, whatever it is that you want to do, just doing that is going to cost 1 beat. But then if there's like variable circumstances or penalties, relative difficulty penalties, let's call them, then that your GM or FC would impose, then you will basically suffer having to spend more to get that primary success criteria. So yeah, I'm calling that the primary consequence is what you're kind of the main thing you're trying to get out of the task. And so because the GM can apply up to 4 relative difficulty penalties, the price of success for buying that primary consequence can be between 1 and 5, but it's probably for most cases going to be like 1 or 2 or maybe 3. So some really hard task would be 5. But even if you can't afford that, then there are also secondary consequences that you can buy, which get kind of interpreted liberally by yourself or the GM. So there's 4 of them. It's you can buy I am not abashed or injured. My actions were performed with grace or efficiency. No one I care for is compromised, disturbed, or jeopardized. Nothing else is intentionally lost or destroyed. So you can kind of buy these with your extra successes and ensure that this doesn't happen to you, right? So if you want to make sure that nothing is intentionally lost or destroyed as a secondary consequence of your agenda, then you have to buy that with a success or with a beat. Similarly, there's also these tertiary consequences, which can't be bought on their own, but they also only cost 1 beat. Instead, they have to be like appended onto another consequence. So these kind of continue the sentence from the secondary one. So it's like, I am not abashed or injured, and I seek an additional prize and maybe get a new item out of that. Or I learn something new or interesting, gain bonus XP. My true intentions are now revealed, which I think adds a lot of drama, and so would earn you a meta currency called a lot. Or something unexpected happens, which can be fun to play with, I think. So this is now like at a point where this is weird enough. There's enough going on here that I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely worth playtesting. We'll really have to see how that feels. But if it doesn't work, if the game feel of this kind of weird purchasing of success criterions is bad or just doesn't feel good, then we can fall back to the tried and true, just roll X many successes above a certain difficulty threshold and then carry on, right? So I might as well try and push out the boat a little bit on this and just see what happens. And the other thing is, with these secondary consequences, any that you don't choose, the GM may choose to subvert. So if you didn't choose, nothing is unintentionally lost or destroyed. The GM may choose to invoke the opposite of that and say, you get what you want. You've purchased the primary consequence, but you lose your sword or something, right? If you're trying to attack a creature and you manage to hit them, you manage to kill them, but in the process, maybe your sword gets disarmed and flies across the battlefield or something. So this is kind of a way, it adds more narrative stakes, it adds more drama, I'm hoping, and it gives a way to basically make every task, like, tasks are not something to engage with lightly. They're something that takes a lot of discussion and probably ends up being a lot of metagaming to like work out exactly what the consequences are going to be before you roll. Or, well, you're rolling to find out what happens, but like making sure that everyone understands what's at stake is something that may require a lot of out-of-game discussion. And so, depending on what it is that you're trying to do, you may realize like, oh, it is just better to do this as a check. And so before you do any kind of roll, before you even decide what kind of roll it is, you will be saying like, okay, well, this is what I want to do. And then the GM will decide like, okay, this sounds like we should do this as a task or we should do this as a check, and using X ability. And so, yeah, I like this idea because it lets you have like personalized consequences. And then the other thing which makes tasks interesting, in my opinion, is what I'm calling kissing dice, which stands for Kismet, Insight, Stunts, and Specialties. And so you're generally going to be rolling not many dice, between, like I said, like 1 to 3, maybe 5 dice. And kissing is how you re-roll dice. So you do a round of kissing where you can just say, okay, I have this meta currency that I want to spend, and you spend lots to re-roll individual dice, or you have some special knowledge or like pre-established facts that you think should apply to the task to give you a reroll, and your peers must approve this. Stunts are like stunts kind of appear in other tabletop role-playing games as well. Stunts are just where you describe something really well, or you role play really elegantly, and there's a bit of a skill to stunting well. There's a condition of saying, well, you need to describe your stunt in a way that still leaves you open for failure. And if you don't do that, then the FC or the GM can veto your stunt. But generally, the stunt doesn't need peer approval in the way that Insight does, because you just roll the dice and see what happens, right? You see if fate agrees with your great performance, right, or whatever. Similarly, Kismet, spending lots doesn't require peer approval, and so you can spend as many lots as you can if you want. But then Ego is the other kind of meta currency, and this can be spent to either to re-roll all of the dice that disappoint you, or it can be used to strike a second beat on any dice that rolled a 6. So you can potentially, and so that's why I say like dice that disappoint you. So you may be trying to kiss dice that you've already got a beat on, in order to get a 6 on them, so that you can get them to strike a second beat by spending ego. But that's a real risk reward kind of thing, because if you've maybe struck a beat, if you roll a 5 on a die and then you decide to kiss it and you don't get a 5 again and you don't get a 6 either, then that beat is lost. So it's risk reward if you want to kiss a die that's already struck a beat. And then specialties are the final way you can kiss something, which is just like any appropriate attributes that you have that would apply. And once again, I don't really know how balanced this is, and I've so far said you can only do 1 round of kissing, and in general, my balancing of the game so far has been very punitive. So I'm putting in lots of restrictions, like you can only do 1 round of kissing, you can only add up to 4 bonuses on a check, you can only take your job level up to 8. I'm trying to add as many like weird, or not weird, but like I'm trying to add restrictions for the first playtest. I'm trying to make the first playtest actually as hard as possible, in terms of like likelihood of success for players, with the intention of basically it's easier to lift restrictions than it is to add new ones. So if we play the game and find out that it's way too easy, and that people are just succeeding at everything all of the time and there's no challenge, then it's, depending on the reaction of some of my playtesters, may get annoyed that I'm like adding more difficulty to the game. But if we playtest the game and it's too hard, then it feels better to lift restrictions and make it easier, right? It's easier to make a game easier than it is to make a game harder, I guess is my point. Oh, this is all over the place. This is such a rambling mess. I've been putting off making this video for a while. It probably shows. Anyway, I feel like I have to make an update at this point because enough has changed. So yeah, I made this character sheet and I want to kind of show off how, like, what a filled in single page character sheet might look like and what are its components. So you have your character circumstances, which are, your character name. Background circumstances are things that you think your character is unlikely to ever change, or which are physically unchangeable for your character. So like their species, their ethnicity, probably skin tones and eye colors and stuff like that are unlikely to ever change. And foreground circumstances are things that could change, like your religion, your culture, potentially hair color and body type and stuff like that are things that could change over time. Gender as well. You have size and age. These set certain things about your character. They have small mechanical effects. Age has probably a bigger mechanical effect because that determines some of your ability spread. Kismet and lots, or Kismet, lots, and ego. This is just your metacurrency trackers. I've put this on the character sheet for this one-page character sheet sake, but I actually think that you could represent lots and ego without your character sheet. You could use some like glass beads to track your lots, and you could use like a coin or something else to track your ego, or a playing card, and flip it when you do or don't have ego. there's something like that. But also having a place on your character sheet where you can scribble in pencil is nice, especially if you're running a game and you only have like a single d20 and like a handful of d6s and a pencil. Your principles are your this is where you can write about your character, and you can basically tell your GM, like, these are the things that my character is interested in doing, and you can write them however you want. These aren't predefined or anything like that. So your goals can basically be like saying, hey, this is what I want to do this session. Habits are like kind of macros or gambits that your character like always or never does, or they can be conditional, so like if one thing happens then do another thing. They're very simple, like character macros, but it's best to write them in like a naturalistic way, so that they're just they're habits. They're things that your character does regularly enough, or within a certain routine, on like and then creeds are things that your character like fundamentally believes in, or like oaths that they've taken, or anything like that. And I was originally going to limit players. This is one case where I've actually lifted limits prior to the first playtest. This is from Ollie's feedback. That actually, I don't think there's any point in limiting how many goals, habits, and creeds you have. They do have an effect on how many lots you can earn back each session, but it's kind of like it's a singular thing. So you would earn back a lot if you complete one of your goals. You would earn back a lot if your like habits like complicate the game in some way, or you'd get back lots if you like stand up for what you believe in, or whatever. But like you get one lot for each of those things in total. If you have multiple goals and you complete multiple goals in a single session, then you're not going to get extra lots. You're not going to get a lot for every goal you complete. It's just like, how you completed any goals, plural, Yeah, so being able to write in as many goals or as habits or whatever as you want gives you the ability to just like express your character with even more depth. Whereas previously I had like, you have one goal, one habit, one creed, and you'd have to like swap them out when you think one is more important than another. And I think it's better to have it this way. So this is your section for abilities. I do like the way that this looks, being able to write in the rank and the score like tells you straight away with the plus symbol, like, okay, this is what you add when you're using such and such an ability. I would like to have some kind of in an earlier draft of this, you can see I had these like boxes here where I would like explain how checks and stuff work. I would like a way to I would like a space on this character sheet where I could kind of remind the player what each rank means for checks and tasks. But I'm also thinking it might make more sense to just have like a second page that you could print on the reverse of the character sheet that will tell you like rules reminders and stuff. This is definitely a clean and minimalist character sheet, but I'm sure there's like there's potential to make another version of the character sheet that's like really stuffed with information. these are your attributes. This is where you would write in all of the stuff that you would get through the character creation process. And we have like a bunch of different types of attributes. So attributes is quite a broad term that means anything from like capital assets to influence or like reputation and items. Attributes also includes your like aesthetics and your like medical conditions and your like magic powers and other weird stuff like disciplines and like genetic traits and stuff like that. So attributes have a lot going on with them. They're probably the most complicated part of the game in terms of like bespoke rules. But the reason they're all grouped together as attributes is because they're all bought with the same thing. They're all bought with caps, character attribution points, during character creation. But like the difference between a feature and an asset or a merit is quite stark in terms of how you actually use them. You also get a special attribute, which is a free attribute that is basically unique to your character, at least among the rest of the players. So if there's something that you want your character to have that is uniquely yours, that makes you stand out as an exceptional, a player character, then you get a special attribute. And so special attributes are also unique to player characters. So like NPCs don't really get special attributes. I haven't really worked out how NPCs work yet exactly. But these are your the kith and kin section here. This is for VinPCs, so the very important NPCs that you've designated. Which that designation can change at any time. You can decide like, actually, I don't think Dr. Zyvalita is very important anymore. The game has moved on. We're not really in this location where he would be accessible anymore, so I'm going to change him out for this new person that we've met in this new town that we visited, or whatever. And but the designation of VinPC basically gives that character plot armor, so to speak, in that basically they can't. It's not that they can't die, but it's a consent mechanic more than anything. It's a way to let the GM. It's a way for you to tell the GM, hey, I like this character. I want to see them more. I want to interact with them more. Please don't just randomly kill them off, or whatever. And so yeah, I like the way that I like the idea behind Kith and Kin. I'll be excited to see how other people react to it. But it's more than just plot armor. Like the Kith and Kin designation is basically saying not just that this is a very important NPC to my character, but potentially they're very important to the plot or the setting as a whole, and I want to be able to trade favors with them, so that they help me out from time to time. And then the last section is for jobs, every job has a name, a level, and 2 inherited abilities, and an XP tracker. XP is basically you level up when you get a number of XP equal to twice your current level. So Scullion here would level up once this character gets 3 more Scullion XP points. And you get XP from two main ways. The first well, three ways. The main way that you get XP is by failing tasks. So if you fail to buy the primary consequence for your agenda, then you get a commisery XP point. You know, you failed, but you've learnt something from your mistakes, so have an XP. You can also buy an XP, a bonus XP, with the where is it? I have learned something during a task. So if you have a spare beat, you can add this consequence onto another consequence and say, but I've learned something new, I've learned something extra, and I get a bonus XP in addition to whatever new information I've learned. And then the third way that you get XP is by spending lots at the end of a session, or strictly at the end of a chapter when you're earning new lots back. If you go over 10, so 10 is the cap, and again, this cap may change depending on how frequently players end up being above 10, but if you get to the end of a chapter, you're earning back lots, you get up to 10, and then you've got like, you keep earning more lots, and you've got 3 more spare lots or something, then you can spend those extra lots right at the end of the chapter to convert directly into XP for whatever jobs you want. So, you know, if you're right on the verge of leveling up your let's see. Yeah, for example, like the Conjurer skill here, for example, has six tests or 6 XP points, and to get up to level 6, she would need 4 more XP points. And if at the end of a chapter, Jezrika, the character, had basically earned back enough lots to put her to like 14, or 4 above her max, which is 10, then yeah, she could either distribute those 4 bonus XP points around among multiple jobs, or she might see that she could level up her Conjurer job to 6 and just go for it, you know. So yeah, I like systems where you learn as you go, but I don't like systems where implementing that requires a lot of extra bookkeeping. So I think this will work better. It'll be a nice middle ground, I hope. And oh yeah, and then if you're learning a new job, then in addition to any other XP you get, every time you do a task, regardless of success or failure, you also get an XP, and that's because you only start a job properly once you fill in the XP bar the first time. So it's a little bit easier to get XP when you're first starting a job. And that's kind of it. That's the whole character sheet, and that's the core mechanics of the whole game. So you've got checks, you've got tasks, you've got kissing dice, you've got spending successes to get specific consequences, you've got your VinPCs, you've got leveling things up, you've got all the ranks, and you've got your principles and your circumstances and your meta currencies. And so the bulk of like character building, if that's a word I even want to use, I don't think it is, but most of the like complicated rules, any additional complicated rules will either come from writing attributes, special attributes, or like complicated attributes that break the rules in specific ways. You know, things like magic, or introduce like entire new subsystems. And then any other additional rules for this system will come from specific scenario rulings that need to be made. So a combat system, potentially a social debating system, if that's something I want to implement. Things for like dealing with politics, or like animals, religion, factions, whatever else. Like all of that stuff is like modular and auxiliary. So from a like core gameplay standpoint, we're almost done with Venus Engine. And so we'll start playtesting, and then once I'm happy with how the game is more or less working, if in an alpha state, that's when I will upload the core game, the base game as you're kind of seeing it at the moment. That's the point where I would put it in a more presentable format and open it up as like a public beta on GitHub. Start getting feedback from the wider community, and then also begin writing Evening Star, which will have all of the individual attributes that I decide to write. It will have the archetypes, which is currently my word for life paths, the things that actually give you the attributes and jobs for your character. Evening Star will hopefully be a self-contained system. The Venus Engine is like the core mechanics that the whole thing is built on. So yeah, that's my update so far on Venus and Evening Star. And I think I'll do a separate video where I talk through the rules in a more thorough way, so that I can send that to my playtesters and they can familiarize themselves with the game in a less rambly way. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll be making videos more regularly, but I don't want to make any promises. The game will be done when it's done, I guess. Anyway, I've been Seraaron. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave it a like or share it with anyone else that you think might find it interesting. Comment if you've got any ideas about anything else that you think should be added or changed, or if you have any questions about certain aspects of anything I've mentioned. And if you want to donate or support the project, there are links in the description to my Patreon and some PayPal and cryptocurrency addresses that you can donate to if you want to do a one-time payment. So yeah, thanks, and see you next time.